Good morning. Welcome back to the shop. Today I just decided, so one of the things I had trouble with when I was building the 335 was hanging on to it after it was assembled and all curvy and wobbly and guitar shaped. So one of the things I see all over the place is these little cradles that hold up the neck side of things, and I think I need something like that. I did this little V-block thing that I use. It's just got a V and some neoprene, two different angle V's. But this works great for working on the neck while it's off the guitar because it lays flat, and it's helpful for fretting. But when it's actually bolted or glued to the guitar, it's not as useful. So what I'm going to do is I've seen StewMac and I've seen a lot of those little cradles. They're like a little half moon shape, and they have a trough down the side, down the flat side, as well as in a couple other spots. And it sort of rocks and fits whatever the angle of the neck, wherever the position is, whatever the angle the neck sits at. And so I think I'm going to try to make a couple of those myself today, because I've got this scrap of rough sawn 8/4 maple that I think I can make use of. And I've got a couple of radii that I'm going to try. I've seen some. StewMac has two different sizes. I don't even know what the diameters are. I didn't even bother looking. I'm just going to try this. We're just hacking, just trying some stuff out. So I've got the bottom of this barrel is about, or bucket is about 10-inch diameter. So I figure I can mark out a 10-inch as big as I can in this, whatever width this board is, probably about 5 inches. Yeah, 4 3/4, somewhere in that range. And then I'll nest in a little one. This one's about 7 or so on this side. I think 6 inches is a little bit too small. This one is about 7 1/8. And so I think that'd be fine. 6, this would be 6. And I suppose on a solid body it might be good, like a Strat style with a straight headstock. But on like a Les Paul where the headstock is tilted back, you have to raise the neck up higher so that it clears, and I ran into that a lot with the 335 as well. So I'm going to try a 7-inch diameter. So I got a 10 and a 7, and we'll just try that. And I'm just going to kind of lay these out, roughly, so that so I use as little wood as I waste as little wood as possible. And so I'm just going to take my pencil here. I'm actually not even going to pencil. We're going to use, because this is really rough, we'll use a Sharpie. I'll destroy a Sharpie nicely here. And the end of this is really good. This was actually used for the center, not this one. This one wasn't used for the center. This was used for the patterns. Okay, so we're going to take, see that, put a little circle, half circle on it. That should give it gives me a nice wide support as well. And then I'll just nest this one down in here somewhere, roughly around the halfway point, and I can get pretty close. And what I'll do is fair this up after I cut it. I'll cut them out on the bandsaw, and then I'll fair it up after I do some more stuff. I've got to do a little bit more. This just gets me the rough length that I'm after. So we're somewhere in the, probably about a 17-inch, yeah, about 16 and a half, 17 inches. So I can cut this off, get a smooth face. Yeah. So we're going to get started. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cross-cut this bit down, and then we'll flip it over and joint one face. So. Okay, so this is a bit, I don't know how to describe this. What I'm doing right now is a kind of a departure that may offend some OCD. You can see this board is definitely a wedge. It's thinner on this side than it is on this side, narrower on this side than it is on this side. But you'll see where my marks are. So the joiner didn't hit here. I should point out, maybe I should point this out, I don't know. I set my joiner one time 6 years ago when we moved it into this shop, and I don't touch the infeed table at all. It stays where it is. I generally leave it alone. So I would much rather take a lot of little passes and sort of sneak up on it rather than waste a bunch of wood or risk a bunch of tear out because you take too deep of a cut. So I'm happy to take many passes. So you saw me taking a bunch of passes. I didn't get it all the way flat because I don't need it here. This part's going to get cut off. You'll see it's just a little bit rough here. Can you see it's just a little bit of roughness here, but I'm cutting that off, so I don't really care that it's not flat. And then the other part of this is it's not parallel. It's hard to just show you that, but it's 4 5/8 on this side and 4 3/4 on this side. So it's off a bit. It doesn't matter because, here, let me step back a little. It doesn't matter because where this radius, where the flat spot here is, that's smooth. That's perfectly flat and smooth right there. Don't care about this part. It's getting cut off. This part's getting rounded. Doesn't matter. This side, I did the exact same thing. I took the same rough. I just went straight to the joiner. So this face got jointed flat first, and both edges got jointed square. It's not a common way to do it. So I'm addressing that because I know it's a little bit weird. Exception. I don't really need this board to be parallel in this direction. These two edges don't need to be parallel because I'm cutting round shapes. Whether this edge is parallel or not doesn't really matter. Parallel with these two. It does need to be square to the face, to a face, at least one face. But it doesn't need to be square. It doesn't need to be parallel to itself. The width of the board does not have to be constant because I'm cutting two parts opposite. This part needed to be straight and this part needed to be straight. So I've got a straight edge here, straight enough. This isn't really mattering. And straight enough on this edge, this isn't really mattering. I want to cut those troughs. I want to cut the groove that will cradle the neck right there into the ends of these because that's the working face. It also is going to have a nice little happy accident is on the big one, on the larger diameter one. If I put a trough all the way along this edge, it's going to put a trough right in this area too. So if I flip the big one over, I'll have another option for a trough. I may not use it much, but it's available. Might as well. So to do that, what I'm going to do, I don't know if you guys have seen this before. Some of you probably have. Is I'm going to use my table saw to cut a radius trough. And it's one of those techniques that it's kind of cool, and you do it, you work slowly, it's very easy to do. Is you run the board gets ran diagonally over the blade. And what that does is it uses the radius of the blade to make that curve. And by changing the angle, you can actually adjust what the depth or the arc, the curve that creates. Straight across, perpendicular, straight across with the axis of the arbor is going to give you a 10-inch diameter or a 5-inch radius, roughly, depending on the size of your blade. If it's a 10-inch blade, you'll get around about 5-inch radius arc in the edge. But if you turn it, you can actually bring that tighter. You can get a smaller radius. You can get a shallower or tighter radius, depending on how tight across the edge or how tight across the blade that you go. So we're gonna play around with that a little bit and see what kind of mess I can make out of this. What I need is some fences, or a fence at least. I need a fence that's going to go diagonal across the blade that I can adjust and play around with that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to find me a scrap board, and I'm literally just going to clamp it to the table. So we'll get that set up next. Okay, so we've got a big old block of massive chunk of maple here we're going to use as our fence. And I got a little scrap that I'm going to use. But you can see the fence is angled, and I don't even know if this is right. We're testing right now. So we're going to just take the scrap block and run it over with the blade only about 1/16 of an inch high. Very, very shallow blade. We're not going to do a lot of hit. So we're just going to take that and see what it does, and if that's deep enough. This is a little wider than our workpiece is, but it's going to tell me from one edge to the inside what it'll look like, and then I'll just work out getting it centered at that point. So we're just going to throw this through and see what it does with a push block or push stick. And I need another one. I need to be able to keep this against the fence. So we'll grab my second one. Oh, you know what? I'm going to use my better ones here. The ones I like better. And then we'll use these to drive us. And you're probably not going to be able to see real well with me in the way. So we're going to move you as well. Okay, we're all set up. We're just going to grab a hold of it like this. I've got the lip back here, pushing against it nice and positively. Use this push stick as just a force against the fence. And we'll just run it through. And one of the things is I've got to make sure that I keep it held down. So this push stick's got a V groove in it. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but there's a V groove in it that lets me put it right on this corner. Now I can just push through. And I can be pushing both down and towards the fence with this one push stick. So we're just going to, I mean, the blade is maybe a 1/16 of an inch, so I'm just going to show you. In fact, it's not going to be easy to see without a little help. So I'm just going to mark this up so you can see. This cherry has been tanned for a while, but it's not real obvious. But I'll get this marked up nicely so you can really see where the cut will actually occur. It's just going to be a little bit of a faint trough right along the edge there. So, okay, here we go. It's actually an interesting thing. So this one did something not necessarily unusual or unexpected, but at first it may not be intuitive. Can you see there's a ridge down the center of this little trough? It made the trough nicely. There's your profile, but do you see there's a little nip in the middle that's a little bump? It's because this blade is a combination blade, and it's got pointy little teeth off to the side to use as scoring, not really scoring, but they cut the fibers first, so if you're doing a cross cut, it helps avoid tear out. When you're doing it this way, what happens though is those things don't actually meet in the center when you're doing it sideways. They're high and low in certain spots, so they create this weird little trough. Thankfully, that's not a big problem. We can deal with that afterwards. I'll get it covered with a scraper. So now that was more like a little heavy 16th. We're going to raise the blade up just a tiny bit, and that's going to make our trough both deeper and wider. I'm thinking we're going to get really close to this edge, but we'll see. So we're going to do another pass, and we'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so it's a little deeper now. It's a little closer to a little past 1/8 of an inch now. It's still got those little troughs, but as it widens out, that trough will get a little less pronounced the deeper we go. That's basically just going to keep widening. So we're going to raise the blade and do a few more passes. I'm just going to keep doing that, and I'll show you when I get to the end. So that was just the third pass, and you can see our shape now. Maybe you can see our shape now. See that? Let me get it over some light colored. So it's kind of about a 1/4 inch deep radius. Trouble is it's only about a 1/2 inch wide, so this tells me that my angle is a little too acute. It needs to be a little more obtuse. I want this to be a little wider than that when I finally finish. At this rate, to get something, I want to trough about at least that wide. About 1.5 inches wide at least. And once I go 1.5 inches, that's going to put this thing fairly deep. So I'm gonna move my angle. I'm gonna move this point of the fence that way some, just a tiny bit. It's not going to take a whole lot, but we're going to move that back a bit so that I can adjust the width of the trough we end up cutting here. I might also need to move that end further because it's never, no matter how wide, yeah, that's going to leave an awful lot. I'm looking here where the blade comes up out of the throat, right up here, and the distance between the fence here and that blade, that's going to basically tell me how wide this flat spot's going to be. And I think I do want it closer, so we're going to move the other end of the fence a bit closer to the blade, because I know we won't get anywhere near that height. And that also will acute up the angle some as well. And now we're way closer. I don't think I'm going to have the blade this high when I finally get done. So we'll just keep, I'm going to drop it down a fair bit just to be safe. And we're going to take another, I can still use this test piece because I'm going to get further out and shallower, so it should cut through this slot. I don't have to redo a test piece yet. So we're going to do another pass here and I'll bring you back. Okay, so you can see the trial and error process this is. That's only about an inch wide. I want to get that's about only about an inch wide. I want to get a lot wider than that. So, and we're out of room. It's basically touching the fence at that point. We don't have a lot of flat here, so we've still got to go even further. More than I thought I was going to need to, but it turns out we definitely need to, because this isn't quite wide enough. But the depth is starting to look pretty good. We're getting close to the depth I'm after, so I'm going to rearrange the fence again, and we'll get another couple of passes going here. Alright, so I did a little more testing, cut a couple of trials, and got it really close. It's deep, it's nice and deep, and it's good. It's the curve I want. I've got a little extra on this face. Yeah, I got a little extra on this edge because I'm going to flatten this face out anyway. This is pretty sharp right here, so it's about as far as I dare go. But you can see there in the profile, no you can't, but you can now. See there in the profile, it's a pretty good dish. That'll hold most necks with a nice little cradling to it, I think. We'll see. So there's that bit. Next thing I'm going to do is, well, I think it's time to flatten this face now, I guess. I could have done that earlier, but we did it this time. We'll do it here. So we're going to jump off to, oh, should we plane it? I suppose we should plane it. We'll get the planer out and we'll do it there. Okay, so now that I've flattened the face, I remarked my cuts for that. But the first thing I want to do is, the cove cutting on a table saw leaves, even with the right blade, there's a blade dedicated to doing it, still leaves some scallopiness, so I'm going to take this over and sand it smooth. I'll get some sticky sandpaper here. This will be, what is this, 80 grit, because I don't actually have, and this is a complete and total lack of tooling on my part, which is not a common situation. Normally I am not want for tooling, but this thing, I just don't have any curved, I don't have any of those French curved scrapers, so we're just going to use a dowel, stick some sandpaper on it, and use that as our smoothing method to get those rough angles, or rough get those rough scallops, blade marks. Jeez, can't speak. Get the blade marks out of these troughs that I just put in. So bring you back when I'm set up for that. Every project, never get away from boring sanding. This is just some 80 grit. I'm just looking to get it smoothish. I don't want what I'm trying to get out is the blade marks, because I plan to put neoprene down on this, and I want double stick tape to be able to stick well. And we'll just get all the blade marks out. Pretty easy. 80 grit makes it go pretty quick. And this truly is not a lot of time. It does not take much. I'm almost done already. We'll see here in just a minute. Perfect. That'll do. Flip it over and do the other side. It truly was that fast. There we go. All right, we're on the bandsaw now, set up to slice out our curves, and we'll just get after it, I guess. Move the fence out of the way here. All right, you guys will probably want me here in protection. We'll see. All right, here we go. Alright, well, while I was cutting, I made a small design change, but it was something I realized I should have just done anyways. I also cut a scallop out of the center so that there's only 2 points of contact instead of a big old long thing. Don't know that it'll matter too much, but now it's just a little lighter points of contact, nothing big. And now I've got this adorable little mini one that I think I will actually make into, so we have the family. It's a little bit short, but that's okay. Yeah, so we're gonna, well, there's also this one. But I doubt I'll use that one for much. Yeah, I can't imagine that being very useful. Maybe it would be, I don't know. So the next bit is we got to make sure they're all sanded, smooth, faired curves so that they rock easily. So I'm going to do that on the belt sander. I'll bring you back when that's ready. Alright, last thing is, well, maybe the last thing. Next thing is to, just clean these up. They don't have to be perfect. They're not even a working surface, so it's not a big deal. We rock nicely. We just got to make this look, it's a cosmetic thing. So, spindle sander it is. Turn on the dust collection. Turn off the microphone. And of course the ever popular sanding phase. I'm just going to knock the corners off, make it, smoothish and not bumpy, not sharp. Nothing major, just basically smoothing out the ends. The sharp corners is on. You can't really see what I'm doing because my bench is right here. There we go. That one, we're going to call that one done. Alright. Got our materials for double stick tape and stuff. We'll start with this one since it's the most stable. Yeah, not comfortable on this. There we go. There we go. Alright, now just take a little of tape and roughly seating it and then just shoving it down in there. Oh, this is perfect. The radius that I'm hitting is almost exactly the same as. So what I need to do now is trim it. I have to work out a way to slice the tape nicely here because I need it to not interfere. Today's video is brought to you by the letter C. Or U. Letter C. Anyway. Okay. Bring you back when we're ready for neoprene. Alright, knife is clean. Okay. We'll do the bigger ones and get those out of the way first, the more important ones. Alright, there we go. Those are what I'm going to call done. Some neck rests. I'll bring a guitar out and we'll see how well it works. Cool, there we go. Okay, so now let's put the rubber to the road and we'll test this. I'm going to try a few of them and see what works. I'm going to pull out my first guitar, my Dreadnought. It's a thick thing, it's tall. And we'll start with this little one here, see how this does. Yeah, that'll hold it. Plenty of room for the headstock. The downside is I think it sits too much on the back. It's actually not touching back here, so it's got some room for wobble because the back of this has a little bit of an arch to it. So let's see, let's try the next size up, would be the big one. This way, well, it supports it, but it's an awful lot of contact. That might actually not be bad. I might actually be good with that. It's definitely touching back here. It takes up a fair amount of the neck, which is okay. Let's see how it does on this side. Yeah, we can come out further, so that's not bad. Not sure if I need to come out of here further, but that holds too. It's pretty secure. Definitely touching back here. So I've got 3 options just for this guitar alone. That's cool. That's gonna work, I think. That'll be just fine. And so we can start working on the guitar. So that is the neck cradle workstation. I don't know, neck cradle. We'll just call it the neck cradles. Neck cradle project complete. Cool. So I wasn't sure if this little backside one, was going to be useful, but it turned out that was pretty effective. It'll do just fine. So the neck cradle project done. Took 2 hours, if that. I'm not even sure I have an hour's worth of footage. So anyway, that was good. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. But most importantly, go make it.